So this workshop is going to be about web development. So an introduction to that. You don't really need to have any experience with JavaScript, HTML, or CSS, even if you don't know what that is exactly. That's kind of the whole premise of this workshop, to get familiarized with them, what exactly web dev is. So what exactly is it? Web development is the building and maintenance of websites. You've all probably used the website before. It's the work that happens behind the scenes to make a website look great, work fast, and perform well. It's basically all the work that goes behind building a website. And then reasonings why to even learn web dev in the first place. We all probably use the internet, and it's not just us. In total, there's like 4.66 billion users worldwide. It's not going to stop there. And between now and 2030, there's going to be an expected growth of 13%, which is much faster than most other technology careers. So if you wanted to transition into tech, the easiest way would probably be through web dev. So these are some common questions and terms that I kind of wanted to focus on as well. So what exactly is a website? What is an IP address? What does HTTP mean? What does front end even mean? What does back end mean? And what are websites coded in? I know most courses here are taught in Java and maybe a little bit of C, but most websites have three like foundational technologies used, and that's like JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And we're going to go over what those are and how they're used. So first question, what is a website? Websites are files stored on servers, which are computers that host. These servers are connected to a giant network called the internet, which is just the network, net. Browsers are computer programs that load websites via your internet connection, such as Google Chrome or Internet Explorer, but Internet Explorer has been discontinued. While the computers used to access these websites are known as clients. Second question was, what is an IP address? So to access a website, you need to know its internet protocol or IP address, similar to like a home address. This address is unique, and it's just a string of numbers. This over here on the right is an example of an IP address, and it's separated by these dots. And each device has an IP address to distinguish itself from the billions of devices that are connected through the internet. And you can probably find any website's IP address by this site, or you can look up your own IP address by just typing in what's my IP address into your browser. The third question, what does HTTP even mean? So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It connects you and your website request to the remote server that houses all the website data. So this computer right here is a client, and this is being connected to a server, and there's requests and response. So I'm sending the request and getting a response back. It's a set of rules, hence the protocol in the abbreviation, that defines how messages should be sent over the internet, allows you to jump between site pages and websites. And then we get into more common terms like front end and back end. So what does front end mean? Front end or client side is the side of a website or software that you see and interact with as an internet user. When website information is transferred from a server to a browser, front-end coding languages like JavaScript, HTML, CSS allow the website to function without having to continually communicate with the internet. And on the side here is just some common things that go along with the term front-end. And then there's a back-end. So what does that back-end look like? The back-end or server side is the side that you don't really see when you use the internet. It's the infrastructure, like architectural side of the whole internet. When you see or go to a website, what you see is the client side. All the functionality and like the database and all that stuff is on the back end. There are more back-end coding languages than there are front-end languages. That's because browsers at the front only understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But a server at the back end can be configured to understand pretty much any language, and that probably includes Java too. And there's more languages on the side here, like Python, Ruby, and or Perl. This is the database administration I was talking about before, scalability, security, data transformation, and backup. And there's more types of development beyond just front end and back end. So there's full stack. Full stack is just both front end and back end. Desktop development is just building software that runs locally on devices. Mobile development, you probably know what a mobile device is, but like smartphone, tablets, the software that's on that. Game development, specifically like games that are on Xbox, PlayStation, etc. That's a different type of development. Embedded development is the work done with like all hardware that isn't exactly like a computer. And then there's security development as well. And that deals with the security of a software program or a website. But we're just going to focus on website development. And then the last kind of question was, what are websites coded in? Websites are mainly coded in these three technologies, so HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the big three, and you probably heard about them the most out of everything. But there are other languages, which is on the server side, like Java, C++, Python, and SQL. But these three are like the foundation to website development. So a little more into each. So this is what HTML looks like. This is like a snippet of HTML code for a basic button. The brackets are kind of the key indicator for what HTML looks like. And it's basically the foundation of all websites, in terms of the bare minimum of what needs to be created in a website. You don't have to include HTML, but it's better to than not to. This is CSS. So this is on the right, a snippet of CSS. Just customizing a thing, element called a Jumbotron. And this other snippet behind the, underneath the text is what the Jumbotron element actually looks like. So the Jumbotron is the name of the actual element, then you have the brackets, and then you alter each like characteristic of that element. So like the background, the color, where the text is aligned. There's many more elements to this, but this is just kind of like an example. And this is the JavaScript part of it. JavaScript is used to add like functionality to websites. These are just snippets as well. If you've coded in Java before, it'd probably be easy to transfer your coding skills from Java to JavaScript. And this is just some of the syntax related to that, like to like declare a variable in JavaScript, making functions, if statements, etc. And mainly it's used to add more complex aspects to web pages, like animations, automating tasks, adding interactive features, etc. So this is like the code along portion. So if you brought like your laptop, if you wanted to like code along, you can. We're just gonna make like a mini project, I guess, with the three. And so this is the setup for it. So there's two options. If you want to set it up through your browser, which is the easier option right now, you can just go to glitch.com. There should be a way to make an account. You just link it to your GitHub. It should be able to make an account for you. But if you wanted to download an IDE as well, I would say use Visual Studio Code. And if you don't have VS Code right now, you can also download that right now. So I'm going to walk through the steps of how to set up Glitch first, and then we can go through VS Code. Okay. So this is what the website looks like. Once you do create your account, you can either connect your Google account or your GitHub account. Then we'll have like a template for the website, and I'll have a way where you can write the code on one side of the website, and the other side will display what you actually have written. I'll just give you time to do that if you want to do that right now. And we'll also like send the slides in the Discord as well if you want to follow along on your own pace too. So once you've made your account, you can go to the main page of Glitch, and there should be a new project button in the upper right hand corner. You press that button and there should be a find more option, and that'll lead you to this page. And then in the lower left, you can click the blank version and there should be a template there already. So new project, find more, and then scroll down a little and there's the blank version right here. And with this blank version, you can look at the files that they already gave you, but these are the 3 technologies we're going to use. Noticing like the ending, the .html, the .js, and the .css all correlate to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then this preview actually previews what is on the left-hand side of the bar. And you can play around with this as well as just a README if you wanted to look more into specifics of it. But I'm going to be going over the specifics of it as well. Yeah, that's just what I said. Okay, so this is the VS Code option. If you didn't want to do through the browser, you can go to the VS Code site and download it for your device. If you haven't used VS Code before, and if you're familiar with like Eclipse for Java, it's similar to that, but there's a lot more extensions with VS Code, and you can use a lot more languages. These are just some tips with VS Code, but I'm going to be sticking with Glitch for now because it's just easier than setting up everything right now within the hour. These are the extensions as well. There's the live server extension. That'll be what will load the actual static web pages that we have for the project. And then the other extension would be JavaScript, ES6, and also Node.js as well. And then I also put some other videos in the slideshow if you wanted to look into that, if you wanted to spend more time on actually setting it up. Okay. Okay, so like I said, so websites are made of 3 different, I guess, languages, but some people don't consider HTML and CSS languages. Throughout these slides, you'll find some like background info about it. So again, what is HTML? HTML defines the contents and structure of the web page. CSS defines the styling, and JavaScript represents the functionality behind it as a simple overview of everything so far. So what we're going to be making is just a simple light and sound like memory game. It's based off the toy by Simon and Milton Bradley. Yeah, I'm just going to show like the end product basically. This is what it is. I don't know if the sound is working for this. You think the audio from the computer will go through or not? Okay. It should be making a sound like when the thing lights up, the buttons light up. There's also the YouTube video. There's no sound. Okay. Okay, what's supposed to happen is the whole premise of this game is that the buttons they light up, and by clicking the button, you repeat back the pattern of the flashing buttons. This is the whole game, but there's a lot more things you can customize with it, but as like a starter thing for people who've never coded or don't know what front end like website development is, this is a good starter project, I think. And then you can just build off of this. A bunch of other common like website projects have been like portfolio projects where you can display your own projects and have it be something similar to like your LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is build the game interface in HTML. So noticing these brackets right here, like the less than or greater than equal signs, those are the key indicators of HTML. If you were to just look at a snippet of HTML, you can go between here and there. So like reading through, you can look and try to like decipher what everything means. But this H1 tag, the H stands for heading, and the numbers indicate different types of headings. And this text right here, I'll preview it, is what's going to be represented here. And you can alter the numbers as well, and there'll be different types of headers. And I'll load up. This is just a different font size. Then this P tag right here is for like paragraph, and this represents this welcome message to the game as well. You can play around with that. You can delete this whole thing if you want to. You can add more. And then these button tags, as we've seen before with that little snippet, these are the actual things that are showing up for the buttons right here. So there's a start button, and then there's stop button. Once we start the game, we stop the game. And then these 4 square buttons are these 4 buttons right here, labeled button 1, 2, 3, 4 by that ID equals. And then I'll go over this later as well, but that's kind of what the whole breakdown of the website is in HTML. And this is just going over what I just said before, but just making sure that you always like start and close off your text with the starting and ending tags to make sure that it's one whole element as well. And you can play around with whatever you want to say because it's your website, but this is just what I put for the welcome message as well. And this is going into the button element. So buttons start with the button tag. And the ID is just labeling each. So that's how I can tell which is which to reduce confusion. So the ID for the start button is just start BTN. And then the ID for the stop button is just stop BTN. And then these also start and end with the button tags as well to make sure just one whole button element. And then this is just repeating the same action, but we're just going to add 4 more buttons for the actual game. And then we can navigate to our CSS file as well and look at the stylings for that. These are the stylings that I've added so far, but in the original template, there's a lot less. So for this indicates what we're actually editing, and the brackets are what characteristics we are editing of that element. So for this, we're adding margin, font family, the line height. But for this specific thing, we're going to be adding a background color to the website, making it gray, and then the color being white. And then that shows up as this gray background and then this white. And there's a lot more fonts and colors beyond this. But this is another link that I have for CSS, like web safe fonts. You can explore that as well in the slides and go beyond just what's in this slide deck. So this is specifically for the body and the H1 elements in the website. So for the body, we see the font family, the margin, background color, and then the color. And this is, again, for the H1, we're altering the specific characteristics of the font family. And then we can also change up like button sizes as well, too. So for this, we have something called padding and we have something called border radius. So if we alter these, we can make this become like 50. And then this will alter padding around the button. Or even like 5. That will just make it smaller, and you can play around the pixels as well. There's different way to rearrange buttons as well, but like as a beginning project, you can just play around with sizing and colors and shapes and radius and all that. And then this is like specifically what padding and border radius are. So padding is the space between the content inside of the element and its border. I just put 10 pixels so far, but you can change that as well. And then the border radius changes the corners of the element to a curve. That's where the radius part comes in. So we could probably change this to like 25, I guess. And this will just change the radius of these right here at the corner. Okay. So after doing that, just adding the 2 buttons, start and stop, and then adding the 4 buttons, and then styling it. This is where we should be at right now. And this is the styling for the game buttons as well. How wide they should be, how high they should be, and like the margin for it. You can change around the values of this as well. And then we had 200 pixels by 200 pixels with a margin of 2 pixels. So the buttons should look like this now from the original with just 10 and 10 for the padding and border radius. So on my website right now, the start and stop button are under the same thing right now. But through the original like CSS, they're both visible. So what we want to do is try to make it so whenever we click start, it converts to stop. And when we click stop, it converts to start. So in order to do that, we go back to the HTML file and add the attribute class equal hidden in the opening tag of the stop button. And then I can show that too. So this is the stop button right here. And this is what makes it hidden or not hidden. So if I just delete that, it should show up again. But this is what makes it specifically hidden on click. And then that turns to stop. And then since we did that, we can also play around with the CSS file again, hiding any element that belongs to the hidden class. Hence the class equals hidden in the opening tag of the stop button. So before, there's no coloring to the buttons right now. But if we did want to add coloring, we go back to the CSS file because that deals with stylings. We can add color to each different button right here. So right now I have this basic light green, light blue, pink, and light yellow. We can also customize these with like hexadecimal values too. If you wanted like really specific colors, but these are just the colors that are within just by typing in words. And then we also have the functionality of clicking on the colors and them changing it from a light blue to a dark blue. So that specific functionality comes from this CSS rule. And I can show that too. So this is what correlates to the green button. This is what correlates to the blue button. This is what correlates to the red button, and this correlates to the yellow button. So that's what's actually changing it from the light blue here to the blue here. And then we just repeat the steps for that for each button. And then this is more of the game logic. So this is actually delving into the JavaScript part of this. So we can go back to the JavaScript file here. So if you know Java already, you probably can understand this already, but these are the actual variables. These are the global constants, these are the global variables, and I'll explain them and how they relate to the actual game itself. So starting off, this is our original JavaScript file, but we can delete all this. And we can have some variables called pattern, progress, and game playing. And these will be like the main three global variables we'll be dealing with. So the pattern variable, that correlates to the order of the colors here, and how the game starts. So it's a memory game, so it plays in a specific order. So it starts off with blue, we click blue, it starts out with blue, second is blue. So since we labeled these buttons 1 through 4, it correlates to that as well. So this 2 represents the blue button, this represents the yellow button, and then so on and so forth. And then the progress variable, that tracks the progress of the person who's actually playing the game and how far along they've gone without missing the buttons. So if I just go back here, it lights up the blue button. So I click the blue button. There's also an audio part of this, but we click it twice. So 2 blue and then yellow. Okay, and then if I don't follow the pattern that was in the pattern that was set before in our variables, this is when we know that our progress actually has made it through the whole pattern or not. So it starts off at 0, and every time we get something correct in the pattern, our progress goes up. And then this game playing variable just indicates whether we're playing the game or not. So right now we're not playing the game. We're going to start off by not playing the game. So default setting would be the button saying start. Okay. So these are the actual like functions behind start and stop buttons and what they actually do once you click those buttons. So this function right here, start game, just initializes everything. So once we've clicked the start button, it should convert to stop, and it should start the progress in the game playing to be true instead of false. Since we added that to our function, we can also switch the hidden states of the buttons as well, from start, stop, and stop to start. I already kind of showed that before as well. So this is where we're at right now. This is the start game function from before. And then adding those hidden components as well and playing with those. And then this dot get element by ID, that's where we bring in the IDs as well for each button. And then if we want to stop the game, we just do the opposite of what we just did in the start game function. So we set game blank to false, and then we have our start button visible again, and our stop button is hidden again. Actually calling up the start and stop functions. So we need to like connect everything now once a user actually clicks on something. Back to the index HTML file. So this on click here, this is right here. So once we click on the start button, this on click literally means us clicking the button and starting up the start game function. And this on click here is for stopping the game. And this calls the stop game function that we wrote in script.js. So this is function here and here. So that's what's happening behind the scenes of when we're actually pressing the button. And this is just the video of that as well. So this is the sound and audio component of it, but you can't hear it right now. I also added this in the slides, but this is playing around with audio beyond just the visible. And it just correlates with the pattern as well. So each time every button lights up, there's a noise as well. That's the sound component of the game. There's many other sounds you can add into this. And music too, they can play around with. But that just adds another, I guess, dimension to the game a little, even though it's pretty simple. So the pattern, progress, and game playing were the first three global variables we declared, but we also want to get the tone playing variable and the volume variable, and those go into the audio portion of this. This is in the JavaScript file as well. So these are the two. So when we're not playing the game, obviously the tone is not playing. And this volume variable affects the volume of the tone. And this just goes into more complicated stuff dealing with the audio beyond the visual, but I would suggest just sticking with the visual stuff so far. But this is, if you want to add this into there, you can. So in that snippet that I showed before of everything, there's 3 functions that I kind of gave you guys to call for the sound. So the play tones takes a button number, 4 buttons, so 1 through 4. And there's a length of time in milliseconds. You can set that time as well to whatever you want. When you call this function, that's the duration of what the tone is being played for each button. And then the start tone and the stop tone break up the tone into 2 steps. So once you call the start tone, the tone will continue playing until you call the stop tone. These functions require argument representing a button number. And then again, there's 4 buttons, so 1 through 4. And then there's an object called frequent map right here that also deals with the sound part, but I'm not going to go over that. And then how do we actually connect the tones to the buttons as well? We need to go back to our index.html file. And so this is where we play into the start tone, stop tone functions that we have from before, from this long code snippet that we have. So each number corresponds to its specific sound that you set beforehand. So all of these buttons play different sounds. So once we connect that, we should be able to press a button and there should be a tone coming out with audio. And this is just having it all connect together. So once we do press start button, it lights up, it plays a tone all at the same time. So this is ultimately what our CSS file should look like at this point now. And then this is the actual function behind lighting up and clearing a button. So we take in a button for light button and we get the element by ID button plus the btn and add this classes.add lit. And then for clear button, we do the exact opposite of that. And then these are just the clues for starting the game. This is ultimately what our JavaScript file should look like by now. So let me get to. Okay. So this is what our logic right now looks like for the guessing part of the game as well. Figuring out if the user has actually correctly guessed or not. And if they don't, then they lose the game and they have an alert show up. But if they are guessing correctly and they are following the pattern that we set before in the global variable, then we should let them keep playing until either they get it wrong or they actually ultimately win the whole game and go through the whole pattern. Okay, so this is what the actual function looks like, and I can walk through this too. So this is the guess function, and this is what will like update the progress variable throughout the whole game. So we want game playing to be true, obviously. They need to be playing the game to actually have their progress be altered. And if they guess correctly, they get to ultimately keep playing. And then once they have the game over, they win the game. But in the other case, when their guesses are incorrect, they eventually lose the game. And we have different functions for that as well. And then this is, once you're done with everything that was in this slide deck, there's more options and features you can add beyond just like 4 buttons. You can add more buttons to the whole website. You can change the timing and the pace of everything too for the tones and when the buttons light up. The pattern as well, you can change up the pattern too from beyond just this and make it a lot more complicated if you wanted to. Adding like a strikes feature, so if they get something wrong 3 times in the pattern, they can lose the game faster than originally. And adding more features to the buttons as well in the CSS file. So beyond just colors, you can add different shapes as well, and beyond just like squares. And if you want to add like a clock feature, have a timer against somewhere here while you're playing the game. I guess that probably add like a stress factor to the whole thing, but these are just options you could potentially look into beyond just this, because this is just pretty simple so far. But I think this is like a good starting point. And that's kind of the end of everything. Is there any questions or anything? Because I will upload everything as well onto Discord if you're in the Discord. But if you're not in the Discord, you can probably join that too.